Beauty is indeed a gift, but it is not the only thing that matters. A good wife is more than just a pretty face, Iya Adebayo shouted. In the small village of Ifa lived the most beautiful teenage girl ever, named Adunni. Adunni happens to be the only eyes, the only child of Baba Adebayo and Iya Adebayo, the most respected couples in the village. The couples were known for their strong bond, their wisdom, and always being happy until they had Adunni, and everything in their lives began to change. Adunni grew under the watchful eyes of her parents and the villagers. From a young age, she was a sight to behold, with skin as smooth as the waters of the village stream and eyes that sparkled like the morning sun. Her laughter was contagious, and she had a way of wrapping everyone around her little fingers. The villagers often commented on how beautiful she was, and Baba Adebayo, her father, would walk with pride, believing that his daughter was truly special. But along with her beauty came a strike of stubbornness. Adunni was pampered in every way possible. If she wanted a dress made of the finest clothes, Baba Adebayo would ensure she had it. If she refused to eat her vegetables, Iya Adebayo would prepare something else just to see her smile. Soon enough, this pampering began to affect Adunni's behavior. She became used to getting her way, no matter the cost. As Adunni grew older, her charm and beauty became more obvious, but so did her faults. She would often leave her clothes scattered around the compound, expecting her mother to pick them up. She hated the idea of helping with household chores. Instead, she preferred to sit by the stream and admire her reflection in the water. The other young girls in the village were taught to be neat and tidy, but Adunni would often look a bit neat outside. But inside her room and their compound would be nothing to write home about. Iya Adebayo, her mother, seeing this behavior, would sometimes scold her, but the scolding were only about uncaring of the dirt that clung to her clothes and hair. After all, Adunni was their miracle and only child, the one they had waited so long for. Baba Adebayo, on the other hand, would chuckle and say, "She is a young girl, please let her enjoy her youth." The villagers began to notice Adunni's growing carelessness. They whispered among themselves, wondering how such a beautiful girl could be so dirty. Yet, they dared not to speak openly, out of respect for Baba and Iya Adebayo. Besides, Adunni's beauty was enough to excuse her behavior in the eyes of many. The men of Ifa would often remark on how lucky the man who would marry her will be. Years passed, and Adunni grew into a young, beautiful woman. Her beauty became the talk of not just Ifa, but of neighboring villages as well. Her hair was long and thick, her skin smooth and unbleached, and her smile could light up even the darkest of rooms. Suitors began to take notice, and soon, many young men started visiting the Adebayo's compound, hoping to win her hand in marriage. But beneath the surface, Adunni's habit had only worsened. She would often go days without washing her clothes, leaving them piled in a corner of her room. The few times she did sweep the compound, she would only do so half-heartedly, leaving dirt and leaves scattered about. Yet, when she stepped out into the village, dressed in the finest clothes her parents could afford, she appeared every bit the perfect bride. The first few suitors who visited were captured by her beauty, but something always seems to turn them off during their interaction with her. They would notice the untidiness in her compound, the way she carelessly flung her shoes by the door, or the smell of unwashed clothes hanging in the air. Yet, they would mind their business, not saying anything. because they don't want to offend Baba and Iya Adebayo. One day, after another random suitor had left without making a proposal, Iya Adebayo sat Adunni down. "My daughter," she began softly, "you are the light of our lives, but there is something you must understand. A woman must keep herself and her surroundings clean. It is not just about appearance, but about respect for yourself and for those around you." Adunni rolled her eyes. "Mama, you worry too much. I am beautiful, and that is what matters. These men will come back. They always do." Iya Adebayo sighed, sensing that her words had fallen on deaf ears. But what she did not realize was that the problem was deeper than she thought. The men who had visited were not merely put off by Adunni's dirtiness, because in their culture, a woman's cleanliness was seen as a reflection of her character, her respect for tradition, and her readiness to be a good wife and a mother. Although Adunni's beauty was undeniable, but her lifestyle was beginning to overshadow it. As more suitors came and went, the gossip in the village grew louder. How can someone so beautiful could be so unkept? The women would murmur as they gathered by the stream. "It is a shame," the men would say, as they sat under the palm tree playing ayo. "No man will want to marry a woman who cannot keep her home clean." But Adunni paid no attention to the gossip. She believed that her beauty was enough to secure her a husband. She spent her days admiring herself in the mirror, unaware that her prospects were slipping away one by one. Little did she know that the lesson she had refused to learn would soon come back to haunt her. As the very thing that she took for granted, her beauty, would no longer be enough to hide the flaws that were now becoming impossible to ignore. As the story of Adunni's beauty spread beyond the border of Ifa, word reached the ears of Ade, a wealthy farmer from the nearby village of Aye. Ade was known for his bountiful harvest, his generosity, his trading, and his handsome features. His farm was the envy of all, with rows of yams, maize, and cocoa that stretched as far as the eyes could see. He was a man of good standing, respected in the village and beyond, and the most richest of his time. And though he had been approached by many families seeking to wed their daughters to him, he had yet to find a woman who truly captured his heart. One afternoon, as Ade sat under the shade of a large iroko tree, his friend and fellow farmer Ojo approached him. "Ade, my friend," Ojo said, clapping him on the back, "have you heard of the beauty from Ifa?" Ade raised an eyebrow. "Beauty? Which beauty do you speak of, Ojo?" "There are many beautiful women in this part." Ojo laughed. "Ah, but none like this one. Her name is Adunni, the daughter of Baba Adebayo. They say her beauty is like the sunrise, and her eyes sparkle like the stars. Men from all over have tried to win her hand, but none have succeeded." Ade's interest was rising. "And why have they not succeeded? Is there something wrong with her?" Ojo shook his head. "I don't think so. Nothing at all. From what I heard, she is simply waiting for the right man. Someone who can match her beauty with his wealth and status. And you, Ade, you are such a man. You should go to Ifa and see for yourself. I hear she is truly a sight to behold." Ade smiled at the thought. He had been searching for a wife who could bring both beauty and grace to his household. Someone who would make his life complete. The idea of marrying a woman as lovely as Adunni was tempting, and the challenge of winning her over only added to the fun. "I think I will," Ade said, nodding his head. "I will go to Ifa and meet this Adunni. If she is as beautiful as they say, maybe I'll just make her my wife." With that, Ade made preparation for his journey to Ifa. He dressed in his finest agbada, made from the most expensive fabric. He wanted to make a strong impression, to show that he was a man of money and status. He also packed gifts, a woven basket filled with kola nuts, bottles of palm wine, and a carefully wrapped package containing a gold necklace, token of his intention to ask for Adunni's hand in marriage. The journey to Ifa took several hours by foot, but Ade was determined. As he walked along the narrow path that led through the forest and field, he thought of all the things he would say to Adunni, how he would charm her with his words and his wealth. He imagined the life they would have together, her beauty complementing his prosperity, and how they would be the envy of everyone around. When Ade finally arrived in Ifa, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden light over the village. The air was filled with the sound of children playing, women calling out to each other as they prepared dinner, and the occasional bark of dogs. The village seemed peaceful, and Ade felt a sense of calm washed over him. He was directed to Adebayo's compound by a group of boys who eagerly pointed the way, clearly excited by the arrival of such a wealthy stranger. As Ade approached the compound, he was shocked by its size and the air of quiet dignity that surrounded it. The walls were made of smooth red clay, and the thatched roof of the main house were well maintained, giving the impression of a family that took pride in their home. Baba Adebayo was seated on a wooden stool in the courtyard, carefully carving a piece of wood. When he saw Ade, he stood up, his face breaking into a welcoming smile. "Good evening, my son," Baba Adebayo greeted, extending a hand. "You are welcome to my home. What brings you to Ifa and to my compound?" Ade bowed respectfully. "Good evening, Baba. My name is Ade from Aye. I have heard so much about your daughter Adunni, and I have come to seek for her hand in marriage." Baba Adebayo smiled widening. He had heard rumors of Ade's wealth and reputation, and was pleased that such a young wealthy man was interested in his daughter. "You are most welcome, Ade. Please sit and let us talk." They sat together on a bench in the courtyard, and Ade presented the gifts he had brought. Baba Adebayo accepted them gracefully, nodding his approval. "You have come with good intentions, Ade, and I appreciate that. Let me call for Adunni so you may meet her." As Baba Adebayo called out to his wife, Iya Adebayo appeared from inside the house, her face light up with curiosity when she saw their guests. "Adunni, come out quickly," she called, her voice filled with excitement. Moments later, Adunni came out from the house, her beauty as stunning as the story had described. She was well dressed in a flowing white iru and buba, and her skin glowing in the evening light. Ade's breath caught in his throat as he beheld her. She was even more beautiful than he had imagined. Adunni approached them with a graceful smile, but as she drew closer, Ade began to notice something that made him pause. Beneath her beauty, there was an unpleasant smell. Her clothes, although fine, but were slightly wrinkled, and as she sat beside her father, Ade caught a smell of something unpleasant, a faint smell of sweat and unwashed fabric. But Ade quickly pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on Adunni's captivating eyes and charming smile. After all, no one was perfect, and perhaps it was just the long day that had left her a bit disorganized, so he thought. "Baba, Iya," Adunni greeted her parents warmly before turning to Ade with a smile on her face. "Good evening, sir. You are welcome." "Thank you, Adunni," Ade replied, his voice filled with admiration. "I have heard so much about you, and I must say you are even more beautiful than the story told." Adunni smiled, Pleased by the compliment, she was used to such flattery and have come to expect it from every man who crosses her path. You are kind, Ade. My parents have spoken highly of you as well. It is an honor to meet you. As the evening wore on, Ade and Adunni spoke at length, with Baba and Iya Adebayo occasionally joining in the conversation. Ade found himself increasingly drawn to her, not just by her beauty, but by her charm and talks. She spoke with confidence, laughing easily at his joke and responding intelligently to his questions. There was a spark between them, a connection that felt promising. But as the conversation continued, Ade began to notice small details that troubled him. Adunni's laughter was sometimes a bit too loud, her movements a bit too careless. She's always absent-minded with her clothes, adjusting them in a way that suggests she was uncomfortable. Still, during their conversation, Ade glanced down and noticed the state of her feet. They were dusty and unwashed. The nails were chipped and unkempt. It was a small thing, but it struck him as out of place for a woman who otherwise presented herself with such beauty and grace. The longer Ade stayed, the more this small imperfection began to weigh on his mind. He tried to ignore them, telling himself that no one was perfect and that these were minor issues that could be overlooked. But as the evening drew to a close, a sense of unease settled over him. At a point, Ade asked Adunni to show him around the compound, at least. Adunni gladly accepted and led the way. Her mother was trying to signal her not to take him to her room, but Adunni, who was full of excitement because of how wealthy and handsome Ade is, didn't even notice her mother. She took him around the compound, showing him how big the compound was. And finally, Ade asked out of curiosity if he could see her room. Adunni, who normally do not care about how unkempt and smelly her room is, took Ade right in without hesitation. On getting in, Ade couldn't believe his eyes. The room was scattered with dirty clothes, heaps at one corner of the room, shoes scattered all over, and bed undressed. Ade couldn't believe that such a stunning beauty could be this dirty and unkempt. But however, he compelled himself, not wanting her to find out about his displeasure. He quickly rushed out of the stinking room, back to where Baba Adebayo was seated. When it was time for Ade to take his leave, Baba Adebayo walked him to the entrance, expressing his hope that this visit would be the beginning of a fruitful relationship. Ade nodded, but his earlier excitement has dimmed away. As he made his way back to Aye, the events of the evening played over and over in Ade's mind. Adunni was undoubtedly beautiful, but the level of her dirtiness was something else. He couldn't imagine himself getting married to such a person. He came to Ifa with the intention of asking for her hand in marriage, but now he wasn't so sure. By the time Ade reached his village, the sun has long set, and the night was dark and still. He sat in his compound, staring up at the stars, his mind racing. He had always believed that beauty was the most important quality in a wife, but now he found himself questioning that belief. Was beauty enough if it was accompanied by carelessness, dirtiness, and neglect? Could he overlook those flaws for the sake of her looks? At last, Ade made a decision that surprised even him himself. He would not pursue Adunni any further. As beautiful as she was, there were other qualities he sought in a woman than just look, and Adunni happens not to possess any other than beauty. The previous night's visit from Ade had left a sour taste in the air. Iya Adebayo, always observant, had noticed the sudden change in Ade's behavior as he left. He arrived with such excitement, his eyes sparkling with interest, but as the night wore on, his interest had shifted. His smiles had grown fewer, his response more guided. Iya Adebayo watched her daughter closely as she prepared for the day. Adunni moved about the compound with her usual careless ways, her feet dragging slightly in the dust as she made her way to the small kitchen to find something to eat. She still wore the same clothes from the night before, now rumpled and stained from sleeping in them. "Adunni," Iya Adebayo called, her voice gentle but firm. Adunni turned her eyes lazied with remnants of sleep. "Yes, Mama. Come sit with me for a moment," Iya Adebayo said, patting the bench beside her. With a sign, Adunni complied. She sat down next to her mother. She noticed the concerned look in Iya Adebayo's eyes, but didn't think so much of it. "Adunni, my daughter," Iya Adebayo began, choosing her words carefully. "You know I love you so much." Adunni's expression shifting. She had heard this tone before, the one her mother used when she was about to give her one of her lectures on responsibility or the importance of keeping up appearance. "What is it, Mama?" Adunni asked, barely masking her impatience. "Last night, Ade came to our house, a good man from Aye, wealthy and well-respected," Iya Adebayo began. "He was clearly interested in you, Adunni. But as the night went on, I noticed his interest faded away, especially after you took him to your room. I fear he might not return." Adunni scoffed. "If he doesn't return, then that is his loss. There will be more others. There are always others." "Yes, there have been many suitors," Iya Adebayo agreed, "but none have stayed, and none was rich as Ade. Have you not wondered why? They were not worthy of me, Mama. That is all." Iya Adebayo sighed deeply, the weight of her daughter's denial heavy on her heart. "Adunni, it is not that they are not worthy of you. It is that you are not presenting yourself in a way that shows your true worth." Adunni frowned in confusion. "What do you mean, Mama?" "I mean that you must take more care in how you present yourself, how you live your life. Beauty is a gift, yes, but it is not enough on its own. A man wants a wife who can care for herself, her home, and her family. He wants a partner who is clean, responsible, and capable." Adunni frowned. "I am capable, Mama. I am beautiful. That is enough." With that, she left the compound. Although she had really liked this Ade of a person, but believed if he doesn't come back, she will still find another rich and handsome man from another village. They will surely come looking for her, so she thought.